In the cold silence between galaxies, a scream crossed the void. It was not a sound, but a signal raw, broken, and full of panic. It was not meant to reach Earth. The galaxy had forgotten Earth. Some believed it was destroyed, others called. It cursed. Most simply whispered one word whenever its name appeared in old archives: Deathworld. But the scream, by chance or fate, slipped through ancient filters and found its way to an old satellite one left drifting at the edge of the Sol system. That satellite had been dead for over 100 years. Then it blinked. Once, then again. Its sensors powered up slowly, as if waking from a long dream. And deep within, a forgotten AI stirred to life. It read the signal. It decrypted the message. And then, with precision that had not aged, it sent one simple command to Earth: activate. Protocol Wraith. Far below, Earth's surface did not tremble. It roared. Across the dark forests of New Europe, underground bunkers opened for the first time in a century. The ruins of old Beijing, the sky lit up with coded flares. Massive orbital rings once, hidden by shadow, uncloaked themselves. They'd waited, prepared, evolved in silence. For 150 years, humanity had vanished from galactic eyes. But now, they returned not with greetings, not with warnings, but with the cold motion of something old and angry. Humanity did not ask who had sent the scream. It did not wonder what. It meant the signal was enough. Someone needed help. And the galaxy, once again, had turned its back. On the other side of the stars, the Solari were dying. A peaceful aquatic species, the Silari, lived deep beneath the oceans of their world, Trinaxa 7. They had no warships, no armies, only song technology and art that could shape water and grow crystal towers with harmonic sound. For thousands of years they offered healing, beauty, and peace. But peace has no place in the minds of conquerors. The Threx Dominion, a brutal empire known for its merciless raids, descended upon Trinaxis without warning. They scorched the skies, boiled the seas, and captured Solari children for experimentation. The Galactic Council responded with silence. No aid, no support. The Solari were not profitable. They had no trade influence. So, like many before them, they screamed into the dark and waited for death. But death came from the wrong direction. The first human ship arrived, not with music, but with a growl of shifting black metal, shaped like a spear, coated in matte carbon. That reflected no light. The vessel emerged from folded space and drifted above the oceans like a silent god. No insignia, no name, just a call sign etched into its side: DR1, Revenant. The Threx, confused, hailed the vessel. No response. They locked weapons. Still silence. Then the Revenant fired. There were no lasers, no flashy explosions, just a thin beam of violet light that touched the Threx command cruiser and turned it into floating dust in less than a second. Then another ship appeared. Then another. 10, 20, 50, until the sky above. Trinaxis darkened with the presence of Earth's returning children, the Deathworlders. These were not humans as the galaxy remembered them. They were taller, their suits fused to their skin, their weapons alive with AI augmentation. Their voices were cold, without emotion. Their movements were precise, practiced, perfect. To the Threx, they looked like demons. To the Silari, they looked like salvation. And to the galaxy, they looked like a mistake remembered too late. On the trade moon of Malkuth, a wealthy Valari merchant watched the battle feed from Trinaxis. He'd once sold information during the first human war centuries ago. He remembered how the humans had been betrayed by the Council, how they had begged for help and were left to burn. They survived, he whispered, his drink shaking in his hand. They've returned. He turned off the feed and began deleting records, burning logs, wiping history. But it was too late. The Deathworlders had already mapped every system. That had looked away while humanity suffered. Back on Trinaxis, the last Threx warship attempted to flee. It broke atmosphere, engines screaming, trying to jump into hyperspace. But the Revenant was faster. It did not fire. Instead, it projected a gravity snare, an invisible field that wrapped around the Threx ship and crushed it like paper. There were no survivors. Once the skies were clear, the Deathworlders descended into the oceans. Their armor shifted colors, adapting to the pressure. They spoke not in war cries, but in careful tones, transmitting to the Sci-Fi in their native harmonic waveforms. "We are from Earth," they said. "We received your signal. You're under our protection now." The Sci-Fi, stunned and near extinction, asked the only question they could. "Why would you help us?" The Deathworlders' reply was simple: "Because no one helped us." That night, the galaxy changed. On every news feed, every data network, every backdoor transmission, the same phrase appeared: "Deathworlders have launched." The name Earth rose again, not in whispers, but in fear. Governments held emergency meetings. Criminal empires paused operations. Even pirate kings went silent, because Earth had returned. And this time, it wasn't coming to join the galaxy. It was coming to judge it. And above the blue oceans of Trinaxis, one Deathworlder stared at the star's helmet cracked open, face grim, voice low. "We were forgotten," she said, "but now the galaxy will remember who we are." And from the void behind her, more ships arrived. The scream had been heard, and the monsters born of Earth's silence were awake again. The news of Earth's return spread faster than any hyperjump signal. It raced through trading routes, slipped into secure military channels, and echoed in underground data forums long believed dead. One message repeated everywhere: the Deathworlders are active on the wealthy moon of Varnes III, in a black tower made of mirror glass. High Chancellor Reth of the Trelawney Empire sat frozen. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of his data core projecting hundreds of reports. Words like obliteration, Threx fleet destroyed, human fleet detected, and Earth has responded glowed across the walls. Reth had once laughed at Earth, dismissed it as a burned rock, its people dead or broken. He remembered their begging messages from centuries ago, when they had been attacked by the Car Dominion, asking for help. The Council had voted against intervention. Humanity was not profitable. Now Earth didn't need votes. It needed nothing. And that made it the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Across thousands of systems, old memories returned like ghosts. In hidden vaults, leaders unlocked sealed archives, classified footage of human battles, forbidden interviews with survivors of the Earth's betrayal, photos of scorched Earth colonies, long buried under lies. Some officials watched in silence. Others cried. A few destroyed the files in fear. On the dark mining world of Skarnex 12, former mercenary commander named Kretz sat in a steel room, watching an ancient holo recording. It showed a young human soldier, wounded, screaming for help on an alien battlefield. None had answered. Kretz had been there. It turned away. Now, hearing the Deathworlders were real and coming, he packed a bag and ran. It was too late. Earth had always remembered. Meanwhile, in the central dome of the Galactic Council on Arathian Prime, emergency session alarms rang for the first time in 60 years. Leaders from across the galaxy gathered, shouting, arguing, panicking. "They can't do this?" barked a Grell representative. "Earth has no seat in the council. No laws bind them anymore," whispered an old Valari priest. "We stripped them of dignity. Now they rise without needing permission." Another voice, colder and sharper, cut through the noise. "We must hide everything," said Supreme Minister Kalen of the Senderus Union. "Every file, every record. Earth must not know how deep the betrayal ran." But it was already too late. Earth wasn't just watching now. It was searching. In deep space behind the orbit of dead star Nox 8, Earth's autonomous vessel Watcher Unit 07 activated. It scanned the surrounding sectors with surgical precision, gathering data, decrypting hidden logs, mapping the movements of old council fleets, identifying war crimes buried under classified status. It found everything, every dirty deal, every bribe to ignore Earth's cries, every medical test done on captured humans, every lie told to erase their past. And Earth didn't leak this data. It didn't accuse anyone, simply recorded. because Earth wasn't hunting justice in a courtroom. It was preparing judgment in silence. Back on Trinaxis 7, the Siluri were still trying to understand what had happened. The Threks were gone. Their oceans, though scorched, were healing, but the skies above were still dark with black Earth ships. The Siluri High Singer, a soft-voiced healer named Vela, floated above a glowing reef when she was approached by one. Of the human commanders, she tried to bow, but the human stopped her. "Don't," he said gently. "We're not gods. We're just what happens when good people are left to burn." Vala asked, "Will you leave us now?" The Deathworlder paused. "No, not yet." In orbit, the flagship Goliath 1 watched silently. Inside its vast command chamber, Commander Alina Voss stood before a wall of names, every planet that had voted against Earth's aid during the collapse era. Some systems were now abandoned, others had become wealthy. All of them had forgotten what they had done. Admiral Monroe appeared beside her. "The Council will try to delay, deny, offer peace." Voss didn't look away from the list. "Let them. We won't fire the first shot. But if they do?" Monroe asked. Voss's voice was calm. "Then we erase them." She raised her hand, and the names began glowing red. Elsewhere, small acts of panic spread. On the trade world of Naraka, entire archives were burned. On Vermilion Station, a minor lord attempted to send a bribe to Earth offering rare minerals in exchange for safety. The message was ignored. On the mercenary moon of Gadir 9, a bounty hunter found a transmission buried in his data ship. It was from Earth. It listed every contract he had ever taken involving human targets. A warning flashed at the bottom, "We do not forget," and then his ship exploded. From the inside, no evidence, no survivors. One by one, systems realized the same thing. You cannot reason with memory in dark corners of the galaxy. Survivors of the Earth collapse whispered among themselves. "They're back," said an old call technician. "But they're not like before. They don't talk, they don't threaten, they just dot." The old man closed his eyes to remind us what we did, and from the shadows of every sector, Earth's silent eyes watched, waiting, because they knew the next scream would not come from the weak. It would come from the guilty. Above the glowing oceans of Trinaxis 7, the black shapes of Earth's warships hung in silence like shadows that had always been there waiting. The galaxy had seen fleets before, armadas of conquest, defense patrols, even ceremonial battlecruisers, with gold-plated hulls and banners fluttering in vacuum. But nothing like this. These ships had no names, no colors, no flags. Only matte black armor, blood-red serial codes, and cold, efficient movement that felt more like predatory instinct than programmed flight. Across dozens of systems, security networks tried to track the fleet. They failed. Earth's ships didn't. Follow standard warp paths. They folded space through deep quantum tunnels once thought theoretical. They moved faster than the blink of a satellite. Sometimes they appeared before their signal reached the target. It was like trying to count ghosts. Inside the command center of Goliath 1, the core ship of the Death Fleet, Commander Alina Voss, stood with her arms behind her back, facing a giant tactical display. Red dots marked locations of confirmed atrocities human. Slave colonies, abandoned refugee worlds, old battle sites the galaxy had erased from its memory. They pulsed slowly, waiting for justice. "Their defenses are up," said Admiral Monroe, reading reports from the inner sectors. "They're scrambling fleets, deploying AI barriers, forming regional coalitions to hold us back." "They won't." "Fire first," Voss said, eyes locked on the display. "They're too afraid. And if they do," Voss didn't hesitate, "we crush them." Back on the Solari world, small teams of Deathworlders moved across the ocean cities, helping repair the song towers and shielding the last of the Solari children. They said little. No names, no ranks. They worked fast, clean, and without reward. One Solari elder asked a Deathworlder, "Why do you help us now when no one else did?" The soldier paused only a moment, then replied, "Because no one helped us either." In the Threx Dominion's core systems, panic grew like fire. The Dominion had ruled with violence for centuries. No empire had ever dared challenge their homeworld, not even the Galactic Council. But Earth didn't ask for permission. It didn't negotiate, simply arrived. Above Threx Prime, the sky tore open. Earth's fleet dropped out of folded space like a scythe drawn from shadow. 30 ships, silent. No signal, no warning. Threx Grand Marshal ordered his fleet to fire instantly, launching full barrages of plasma, particle beams, and antimatter warheads. It didn't matter. Earth's ships absorbed it all. Then they responded. In less than 9 seconds, the Threx defense grid collapsed. Their capital cruiser Screamer's crown was sliced in half without a sound. 2 planetary cannons were deleted by precision beams from orbit. Every broadcast station was dark within minutes. The sky turned red and the Threx dominion ended. Not a single Earth soldier touched the surface. The fleet left behind no troops, no occupation force. Only one thing remained. A satellite broadcasting a single message in every galactic language. This is not war. This is correction. The footage spread like a virus. All across the galaxy, species watched the Threx fall in silence. Some celebrated, others wept. And most especially, the powerful shook with dread. On the golden planet of Heliveth, Lord Protector Drax of the Aurelian Empire watched the footage in horror. They don't want conquest, he muttered. They want reckoning. His advisor, a withered Aurel scholar, nodded slowly. They are the dead risen, the forgotten awakened. They are what we made. Drax turned toward his vault. Inside, behind layers of shielding, lay records of his empire's past, files showing illegal testing on captured human colonists, secret trade deals during the Earth collapse era, the vote to deny Earth refugee status in the Council 142 years ago. Burn it all, he whispered, but he was too late. Earth already knew. In orbit of the neutral trade station, Elcar 5, an old junker ship drifted toward, docking and registered. Slow, easy to ignore. Security waved it through. It was only after it passed that they realized the ship had no crew. Inside was only one object, a black cube with red glowing edges. The cube broadcast one line: "You sold our children here." The station was evacuated. 1 hour later, it imploded. No survivors, no trace, no warning. The Death Fleet continued to move, but it never stayed long. One system cleansed, another left untouched. Earth didn't explain the logic, made no demands. It didn't want apologies. Its only records if you had stood against Earth, profited from their pain, or stayed silent during their fall, you were marked. And if you had resisted those evils, helped their scattered people, or spoken when others were quiet, Earth spared you. Sometimes Earth even helped rebuild what the galaxy had ignored. On the desert world of Malores, where a small group of alien monks had once hidden human survivors during the old wars, a single Earth drone descended. It dropped power generators, food crates, and advanced medical supplies. Then it left no explanation. No thanks. Just a carved plaque in the sand. You remembered us. So now we remember you. Back on Goliath 1. The fleet prepared for its next strike. The galaxy had seen wars. Now it saw something worse. A storm born from memory, a fire born from silence. And above it all, the Deathworlders flew not to rule the stars, but to remind them what happens when you forget humanity's pain. The Galactic Council always prided itself on order. 1,000 species, 10,000 worlds, all bound together by fragile treaties and polished lies. The Great Hall of Arathian Prime still stood tall silver pillars, floating data orbs, and long, shimmering banners displaying the symbols of peace. But inside that hall, under its beautiful silence, something poisonous festered, because Earth had returned, and with it came memory in sealed chambers deep below the council floor, ancient. Files once considered dangerous to even read were unlocked in secret. Counselors stood in cold silence as glowing projections filled the air video logs. Classified transmissions intercepted cries for help. A human colony bombed. A refugee fleet denied entry. A child auctioned in the Vrax slave markets. 1,000. Betrayals committed one after another. They weren't accidents. They weren't mistakes. They were choices. Back then, Earth had begged for help. Their colonies were being overrun by the Car Dominion, then the Red Plague, then internal collapse. They had reached out to the Council with trembling hands, hoping for even a whisper of support. The Council turned away. Earth had no economic value, no trade leverage, and no friends, so they were left to die. But now, Earth had survived. Had become something else, something no one recognized, something terrifying. Now, the old crimes didn't just rise from the archives. They came wrapped in shadows. Driven by ships forged in the silence of the Death World, across the galaxy, governments scrambled to hide the truth. Servers were destroyed, memory banks burned. But it didn't matter. Earth's fleet didn't need the originals. Their AI systems had already copied everything, every message, every voice, every name, on the deep storage moon of Tekara 9. Once a secret council outpost, black drones appeared overnight. They dug through vaults of forgotten war logs and records of failed human experiments. When the local director tried to flee, his shuttle exploded before it left atmosphere. Its final scream was recorded not by accident, but as a message. "We see you, we remember." In a small bar on the station of Kirel 4, two alien traders whispered over drinks. "Do you think Earth will come for all of us?" one asked. The other, a former diplomat, shook his head slowly. "Just the guilty, and those who stayed silent when it mattered." Meanwhile, across Earth's fleet, a silent operation began. It was not war. Not yet. It was something far more surgical. Operation Memory Burn on Goliath 1. Commander Alina Voss stood before a circular room, filled with holograms of every known world that had taken part in Earth's fall. The room was quiet. No advisors. No noise. Just names. She did not speak to her staff. She spoke to herself. These are not enemies. They're witnesses, cowards, collaborators, and liars. Behind her, Admiral Monroe entered, carrying a sealed report. They found something. Voss turned. "Where?" "In the old Valari Core archives," Monroe said. "Backed up on a neutral node. We decrypted it." He placed the device on the table. A video began to play. It showed a young human boy, barely 12, inside a lab, alone, hooked to machines, speaking softly. "Where is my mother?" The answer never came. The screen cut to a trade agreement signed by 5 council members approving human test subjects in exchange for biotech. Voss's fists clenched. Monroe looked away. This wasn't war. This was slaughter. Quiet. Hidden. Paid for in silence. Voss whispered. No more silence. Across the stars, Earth's Deathworlders began releasing select memories into the galaxy. They did not broadcast demands or declarations. They simply dropped data cubes into the networks of public worlds encoded. Undeniable. Footage of human outposts being ignored during planetary collapse. Audio of desperate calls being blocked by council filters. Recordings of alien scientists debating how much pain a human brain could survive before neural death. It shattered the illusion of peace, and more importantly, it shattered trust. Entire populations began questioning their leaders. Why had they hidden this? Why had no one told them what Earth suffered? On the green world of Thavaris, a university professor gathered his students and played Earth's leaked footage. Many cried. Some grew silent. And one stood up and asked, if Earth suffered like this, what would we become if it had been us? Back on Earth, inside a mountain command hub buried under the frozen Canadian wastelands, a chorus of artificial minds monitored every reaction. The Deathworlders didn't just want revenge. They wanted to expose the truth so deeply that the galaxy would never forget. And for that, they needed one more thing. A confession. On Arathian Prime, the Council's silence cracked. One of its oldest members, Chancellor Varn, of the Trillic Combine, stood before the emergency assembly and said the words no one dared to say for a century. We failed them, he said. We left Earth to burn. We let it happen. And now they come not as enemies but as memory incarnate. We deserve every shadow they cast. Silence followed. No one cheered, because deep down, they all knew Varn was right. But it was too late. Earth had already moved. The Death Fleet, silent and untraceable, vanished again from known space. Its targets were now marked in blood red in their own database. The Crimson Liston encrypted ledger of every system.
Directly responsible for Earth's collapse. They would be visited, not all at once, not loudly, but completely. And when the last
system on the list fell, the galaxy would not hear an explosion, it would hear silence. Because Earth didn't come to conquer, it came to remind the stars of what happens when you bury the truth. The first system on the Crimson List was called Trellosnina, mid-sized mining colony, orbiting a dead star. It looked harmless. Rusted factories, broken satellites, and a spaceport no larger than a warehouse. But Earth's records showed the truth. This was where the Council had stored the children. Human children, abducted during the collapse era, forgotten by the galaxy, sold as test subjects for resistance trials. Some died. Some lived as tools. None were ever returned. At precisely 0300 Standard Galactic Time, the sky above Trelos 9 turned black. There was no warning, no message, no threat. Just the arrival of 3 Deathworlder cruisers, each shaped like a blade, each cold and silent as a grave. The planet's defense system tried to respond. Automated guns powered up. Shields hummed to life. But none of them fired. They simply shut down, one by one. Like someone had reached into their software and pressed off. And then the Earth's forces descended. Not with armies, not with invasions. Just 30 operatives in black armor, silent as machines, landing with surgical precision across the planet's surface. They moved without a word. They did not knock. They breached, doors torn open, walls crushed. Vaults exposed inside the old research stations. They found sealed chambers, rusted cages, human DNA markers on walls, scratch marks where small hands had once clawed for escape. They found bones, and Earth did not cry. The mission wasn't rescue. It was consequence above the planet. Commander Alina Voss watched from orbit. Her face was blank, but her fingers were clenched tight around the rail. She said nothing as the feed showed the last administrator of Trelos 9 trying to flee in a stolen transport ship. The ship exploded before it passed the third moon. A single black beacon was left behind on the surface, its message pulsing across. The system, in bright red glyphs, they took our children. Now, we take the silence. The galaxy felt the strike like a crack in the spine. Trelos 29 had been a secret, a forgotten place. If Earth had maps of that, what else did they remember? The second system fell 2 days later, Varnak's cluster. This one wasn't a criminal hub. It was a corporate Centaura, shining space station, orbiting twin stars. Home to biotech giants who once sold Earth's medical records to alien warlords. Billions of credits made off stolen data, human suffering, and bioweapons tested on colonies begging for help. When Earth's ships appeared, the station's CEO tried to pay them off. He sent a live transmission. He wore a flawless suit, smiled like a politician, and offered an agreement of mutual benefit. The Deathworlders didn't even reply. They just cut the signal, and the station, it vanished from orbit. No wreckage, no explosion, just gone. The galaxy searched for hours. Sensors replayed the moment again and again. 1 second the station was there. Well, next, nothing. Some said Earth used a spatial folding weapon. Others said they simply erased the coordinates from existence. But the truth was simpler. Earth didn't want anyone to find what they had removed. They wanted everyone to know it wasn't coming back. On neutral worlds, protests began. Citizens of allied races demanded their leaders explain what they had hidden. Why had Earth been abandoned? Why had no one told them what had happened during the collapse era? On social feeds, Earth's data cubes filled with raw footage, images, and names spread like wildfire. No encryption, no propaganda, just facts. Truth became the only weapon Earth needed in the dark halls of the Council. Fear turned to desperation. They're not fighting a war, said one counselor. They're teaching one, said another, and In every corner of space, the message grew louder. Earth doesn't negotiate, it corrects. On the small desert planet of Jura's Reach, which had once hosted a hidden auction house for human slaves, the sky broke open at dawn. Not with fire, with silence. 3 drones landed. They hovered above the sand. One scanned the old market square. Another drilled into the auction block and extracted memory stone from beneath it. The third played back a voice recorded 140 years ago. "Please, I just want to go home." The voice of a boy, maybe 12. Then the drones self-destructed. Taking the block with them, they left behind a symbol scorched into the rock, "Earth remembers." More and more systems tried to surrender. Some offered reparations. Others offered peace. But Earth didn't reply, because this was not diplomacy. This was a reckoning. Every system on the Crimson List knew they were next. The pattern. One day it was a criminal moon. The next, a shining capital that had never done wrong. But Earth knew. It had always known. Inside Goliath 1, a new name lit up on the tactical display. Commander Voss approached slowly, reading. The entry, Valora Prime, voted against Earth aid 5 times. Hosted Car Weapons Lab. Lobbied to erase Earth records from the Council Codex. Admiral Monroe stepped forward. Ready the fleet? Voss shook her head. Send a message. Monroe raised an eyebrow. What kind of message? Voss turned, her eyes like cold steel. One they'll never forget. As the fleet prepared to fold space again, single human voice echoed across the encrypted star networks of 1,000 systems. Not angry, not loud, just final. We asked for help. You watched us burn. Now you watch yourselves. And with that, the Deathworlders vanished once more. But the galaxy knew, ... They were not gone. They were just choosing who to remember next. The great marble towers of Arathian Prime had never felt so hollow. The Galactic Council, once the ruling voice of the stars, feared by all, sought in silence as their own lies cornered them like prey. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, Earth's Deathworlders were not just attacking, they were revealing. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to show everyone what had been hidden behind banners of unity and peace. And the truth was worse than anyone imagined inside the Council's high chamber. Supreme Minister Kalen stood trembling behind a polished silver podium. His face was pale, his hands clenched. Dozens of counselors stared at him, waiting, some with fear, some with denial, and some with shame. The message from Earth had just ended, and its final words still echoed in the air like thunder. We know everything. You cannot bury memory with silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Counselor Elvessa, of the Celeria species, recently saved by Earth, rose from her seat. We should speak to them, she said. We should admit what we did. Counselor Dran, of the Aurelian Empire, slammed his fist on the desk. Are you insane? If we confess, we die. Earth will purge us like they did the Threx. Counselor Krell, a veteran of the Red Wars, looked away. They're purging us anyway. Outside, chaos spread. On counseling worlds, protesters marched. Angry citizens demanded to know the truth. Earth's memory cubs had exposed thousands of secret files, proof of genocide, betrayal, slavery, and silence. Political leaders were resigning. Military officers were vanishing. In one outer system, the governor was pulled from his mansion and thrown into orbit by his own guards after. Earth's drones released video of him profiting from the auction of human refugees. The people had seen too much, and the council had no. Defense left in desperation. Supreme Minister Kalen summoned a secret meeting of the Inner Circle, only 5 members, all involved in the original vote to deny Earth aid during the collapse era. They gathered in the Black Dome, a hidden chamber, buried beneath Arathian's core, protected by jamming fields and AI silence protocols. It was the one place Earth's fleet could not reach, or so they believed. This is our final option, Callan said, placing a crystal tablet in the center of the table. The others leaned. What is it? Elven Rout asked, voice low. A rewrite, Kalen whispered. a digital rewrite of the historical record. We'll blame the Threx, say they intercepted Earth's signals. Say they manipulated the Council into turning Earth away. We'll erase the original votes, plant fabricated ones, shift the guilt. Counselor Taylor blinked. You want to lie again? After everything? It's the only way we survive? But as the tablet activated, something went wrong. The room's lights flickered. The table powered off, and from the shadows, a quiet voice spoke. We're already here. All 5 counselors froze. The walls of the chamber dissolved into black holographic code. The table became a glowing symbol, Earth's fleet crest. The air shifted, and a figure appeared. A woman in dark armor, pale face, cold eyes. Commander, Alina Voss. Protocol Wraith initiated, she said calmly. Welcome to your confession. Callan stood, face ashen. This is a secured chamber. You can't be. We've been watching since you arrived, Voss said. Every message, every lie, every plan. Counselor Rout lunged for a pistol at his side. He disintegrated before he touched it. Voss didn't blink. You were warned, she said, walking slowly around the table. We didn't come for war, came for memory. But now that you tried, to bury it again. Her voice dropped into a whisper. We'll give you the justice you gave us. One by one, the hologram showed each counselor what Earth had on them. Footage of Kalen signing off on the blockade of human refugee fleets, A. Recording of Rout discussing the use of humans for AI calibration trials, encrypted orders from Elvin, Root authorizing the sale of Earth's medical data to hostile empires. And then came the final document stamped, sealed, undeniable, Operation Eclipse, full political isolation of Earth. Let them fall. Callan broke. We had no choice. Earth was collapsing. Helping would have dragged the galaxy down with them. Voss's eyes narrowed. You chose comfort over compassion, profit over people, and now no one will forget that. The hologram vanished, and the black dome exploded seconds later. The Council tried to spin it as a tragic accident, but no one believed them. The footage was already out. Earth had released everything across the galaxy. Faith in the Council shattered, like glass. Entire planetary blocks declared independence. Old alliances collapsed. Former member races sent requests not to join Earth's fleet, but to confess, to remember, and Earth. It said nothing. No threats, no more warnings. The Deathworlders simply removed the next name from the Crimson List, Valora. Prime-dotted skies turned black that night. No one heard from them again, and the galaxy now understood. Earth didn't just punish evil, it punished those who erased it, because to forget the pain of others was the last lie the galaxy would ever tell. The galaxy no longer looked the same. The banners of the Galactic Council had been pulled from spaceports. Statues of leaders once praised as heroes were covered, removed, or torn down by their own citizens. On thousands of worlds, Earth's memory cubs still glowed silent, unchanged, and undeniable. Each cube contained only the truth, and that truth had done something no fleet, no war, no rebellion had ever done before. It had rewritten history, and more than that, it had rewritten the future. On the lush ocean world of Varelia, once a neutral trade zone, schools had begun teaching a new subject, collapse history. Children of every species studied Earth's betrayal, not as a warning against humans, but as a warning against silence. One young Thaleri girl raised her hand in class and asked, "Why did no one help Earth?" The teacher, a soft-spoken Zelliant, answered without hesitation, because no one was brave enough to speak. Until now, the Deathworlders had never demanded tribute, never claimed land. They never asked anyone to worship, serve, or follow them. But they had done something far more powerful. They had forced the galaxy to remember. Back on Earth, the sky over New Europa shimmered with lights from orbital stations. The homeworld had changed, no longer broken, no longer desperate. Cities were clean, towering, alive with quiet power. Every citizen wore the same mark somewhere on their clothing or gear, a red streak across black, the mark of memory, inside the central command chamber of Goliath 1. Commander Alina Voss stood alone. Around her, holograms showed the final names. Being crossed off the Crimson List, a few remained. Systems that hadn't fought Earth, but had enabled the silence. Ones that had profited, ignored, or looked away. And yet, they hadn't been destroyed, not yet. Because something had changed in the last 47 days. Over 100 worlds had contacted Earth, not to apologize but to confess. To open their archives, to share the truth. And Earth had listened. On the former criminal moon Drex-11, the governor had uploaded thousands of logs showing black market trades of Earth's stolen tech. In response, Earth sent no fleet, just a drone with medical equipment, food, and a sign, "Truth buys redemption."
Oh.
On the high-tech planet Gethera, its citizens held a global day of silence to honor the lost human colonies.
Always.
Sent a simple message. We remember you too. And in the ruins of Arathian Prime, where the council once stood tall, a new foundation was being laid. Not for a palace, not for another government, but for a library. Its name was written in 27 languages, including Earth Standard, the Hall of the Forgotten, a place to store everything, every betrayal, every truth, every scream, unedited, unfiltered, uncanged. Because Earth didn't want revenge anymore. It wanted a galaxy it could never forget again. Still, there were those who resisted. On the icy fortress world of Halrix II, the last holdouts of the Council's military alliance, gathered in secret, they refused to surrender. They refused to speak the truth. Their leader, General Cove, broadcast a warning to Earth. We will not kneel to a death world. Voss saw the transmission. She didn't reply. Instead, Goliath 1 shifted course. Hours later, Lurx 2's defenses failed. No one died. The entire planet was shut down its power, communication, atmosphere control all disabled in perfect Swinwy. No violence, just a message burned into the snow by a passing drone. Truth, or silence forever. The generals surrendered before sunrise, and so Earth's final campaign ended not in war, but in silence chosen by others. Across the stars, things changed. The old systems fell. The new voices rose, not all at once, not perfectly, but truly aliens. Once raised to hate humans, now studied. Earth's story, worlds that once erased the past, now preserved it in shining temples, and Earth. Earth finally rested, not as a conqueror, but as a reminder. One species, one death world, that chose not to forget. What had been done to them, man showed the stars what happens when the forgotten come back with memory. Sharpened like steel. Commander? Voss stood on the balcony of the Terran Unity Spire, watching Earth's twin moons rise over the horizon. Admiral Monroe joined her. Is it over? He asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, It's not about being over. It's about making sure it never begins again. And across the stars, the galaxy watched, changed, humbled, awake. The galaxy was quiet now, not because peace had returned, but because something greater had been born from the ashes. Remembrance. Across the stars, where once flags of empires waved and council decrees echoed, now stood monuments made of memory. From the desert world of Acaris to the icy rings of Draxel 7, statues of unnamed human colonists rose from the ground, carved not from pride, but from guilt, truth, and survival. These statues had no faces, just the shape of a figure reaching toward the stars. Because the galaxy could not name every human lost during the collapse era, but Earth had made sure they would never again be forgotten. Inside the Hall of the Forgotten on Arathian Prime, aliens of all species walked silently through vast rooms lined with glowing archives. No guards, no propaganda, just rows of truth. A sign greeted every visitor. You are now entering memory. You may leave changed or not at all. Each room told a story. The famine on Cryo-V, where human miners were left without food while ships passed overhead. The quarantine zones on Zetter Prime, where medical aid was refused out of fear. Auction houses of Drex-11, where children were sold and no one came. And at the very end, Dunder's soft light and no sound, sat a black cube sealed in crystal. Earth's original signal. The one that started it all. The one that cried, "We are dying. We are not your enemy. Please help us." That signal was sent 143 years ago. No one answered, till now. Above Earth, thousands of alien ships now orbited in peace. Scientists, historians, healers, diplomats not warriors. They came not to conquer or control, but to learn. The Terran embassy station, a former Valari noble, stood before a Terran officer. "We've begun changing our educational structure," she said softly. "Your story is now required history. We will never silence the past again." The officer didn't smile. He only nodded. "Good. Because Earth doesn't ask for guilt. Only truth." Not every species welcomed the change. Some still whispered of danger, fearing Earth might rise again in fury. That one wrong move would bring back the Death Fleet. But Earth didn't threaten anymore, because Earth didn't need. 2. The memory of what was done, and what came after was stronger than any weapon. In orbit over Valora Prime, the final planet once marked on the Crimson List, a single Earth drone descended and projected the following message into the clouds: "No more blood, just truth." Then it left. No fire, no purge, just silence. And the stars remembered. On Earth itself, life had returned to something close to peace. Cities grew with purpose, not power. Children studied the stars not for war, but for the lessons they carried. Veterans of the Death Fleet walked freely in the streets, heads high, not as killers, but as keepers of justice. Commander Alina Voss was no longer in command. She had retired quietly, her service complete. She lived in the quiet forest of Terranorth, where she rarely spoke of the fleet unless asked by children too young to remember what it had done. One such child visited her, curious. He asked, "Why didn't Earth destroy them all, after what they did to us?" She looked at him for a long moment, then walked to her garden. She pointed to a small tree scarred, twisted, but still growing. "Because revenge burns everything," she said, "but memory grows roots." The child didn't fully understand, but he would. One day. In the far reaches of the galaxy, old warlords sat alone, watching the stars in silence. Some had been spared, some had confessed, others had simply survived by hiding. But they all knew one thing: Earth had changed everything, not with bombs, not with fleets, but with truth that could not be buried. The story of Earth, of its betrayal, its survival, and its response was now etched into the very fabric of galactic civilization. Every new government had a clause: never silence a distress signal. Every academy had a class: collapse history. Earth, in every starport, had a statue of a warrior, not of a hero, but of a lone human figure. Reaching up, eyes open, never again forgotten. The Deathworlders had left the battlefield, but they had won, not by killing, but by making. Sure, no one would ever again forget what was done and what it cost to remember.